When we first learned that Metroid Prime 4 was going to feature several human side characters that were going to talk to Samus throughout her entire mission, we were all rather worried. The most worrying one of the bunch was this guy right here, Myles MacKenzie, a clumsy Scott the Woz looking dork who makes jokes and holds MCU-esque monologues about not having to share a cubicle in an office anymore, with a guy who's named Phil of all names, which upset me in particular. Come on, leave me out of this, MacKenzie. The vibes I was immediately getting from him ranged from
Slurms MacKenzie. All right! Whammy wham wham wazzle!
to
Oh no! It's boiling acid!
combine that with a franchise that is known for its atmosphere of isolation that is enhanced by an intense feeling of solitude, and the result seemed like a disaster in the making. However, when I finally got my hands on the game, I came to the realization that the guy ain't too bad. The first encounter with him sure seemed like my worries were justified, but as I progressed, I noticed how much of this feeling came from the mere fact that he is there to begin with, and that, on the surface, he is an amalgamation of comic relief side character tropes. But in execution, he is handled probably the best way that a character like this could have been handled, and I think the main reason for that may be the performance. Shout out to his voice actor, David Goldstein. His dialogue lines could have been absolutely disastrous if they had been delivered in an annoying cartoonish way. But Goldstein does it with a lot of restraint. He gives the character, well, character and dimensions, without turning him into a caricature. For example, this is one of his lines. Now picture in your mind's ear what it sounds like when this dork says it. Now, did it sound rather SpongeBob-esque in your brain, kinda like,
I can provide you with intel from here. What do you say? Teammates?
well, here's what he actually sounds like.
I can provide you with intel from here. What do you say? Teammates?
Now, do you get what I mean when I say restraint? I feel many people who share their frustrations about MacKenzie online, they might actually be biased because of the version of him they build up in their head, and whenever he shows up on screen, they may apply a filter of their mental version onto him. It's the idea of him that is the problem. Don't get me wrong. There are moments when I find his dialogue and the things he is saying out of place, to put it mildly.
It's about to get real nerdy in here.
And having him call me while cruising through the desert to remind me where I need to go is quite annoying at times, and I wish there was an option to shut him up. What I find more frustrating though is when I try to call him and he's out of reach, and then I have this stupid message stuck on my screen for almost 10 seconds. What is up with that? But overall, I think he is okay. Not great, but definitely not as frustrating as he could have been. And that pretty much goes for the other characters too. And luckily, they avoided a huge mistake and decided to let Samus stay quiet. And this actually adds to some of the cutscenes, where the characters talk and talk and talk, and we see Samus reacting by just standing there silently, effectively turning dialogues into monologues, which is A, very much in character for Samus, and B, adds a bit of dry and subtle humor that actually works here.
Oh! Whoa! You are sneaky quiet, you know that?
Unlike some of the more in-your-face humor, which doesn't fit in a Metroid game. It is not a Metroid Other M situation where they completely mischaracterized Samus and made the whole story a pain to watch.
The baby, and the baby.
By comparison, I find Armstrong slightly more problematic because she is fangirling over Samus quite a bit.
Samus? It's really you. I don't even know what to say. Is this a new suit? It's amazing. I love it. I love it so
Private.
Sarge, look! She's doing Morphball.
Yeah, I see it. Don't matter.
And I feel Duke is a bit too chatty, and he seems like he stems from a different franchise entirely. But again, none of this ruins the game for me. Also, Duke is voiced by the Doomslayer, and if that isn't a redeeming factor, then what is? In summary, are Myles and the other human characters a huge detriment to the overall experience? I don't think so, because we have to take the game for what it is. We may have wanted something akin to Super Metroid, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Prime 1, but this is not quite it. If you stop looking at it that way, it is perfectly fine for what it is. It's still quiet and still has that feeling of desolation when it's needed. And the atmosphere doesn't suffer too much when you have people talking over comms or when they are walking around with you. Of course, there are moments when I wish they weren't commenting on what I'm seeing, but honestly, if this wasn't a Metroid game, these characters and dialogues would have been completely fine. Unfortunately, the context of this being Metroid is what makes the inclusion of the characters frustrating. And I suppose MacKenzie might be the figurehead of this problem, as he is the first named friendly NPC we meet in the game. In general, the game does a couple of things differently, and several aspects may be bothersome to some, but I just began looking at the game for what it is, and it's still very much Metroid in spirit and execution. The game has its issues, but I'd say the characters are negligible. But do I think they add anything to the game? No. Would it have been better if they had been left out entirely? Probably yeah. Given that I think he's actually not that bad, do I still enjoy shooting at Myles whenever I see him? Heck yes.
Ow! Come on! You can now use the fire shot. You can shoot projectiles with extremely high temperature, so I bet targets will burn or melt when they're shot. Ow, that burns! Hey, that's too hot!